All right, one reason that the election matters so much is because of what we're seeing happen in our government, especially tonight, all right? A mutiny by federal prosecutors, 4 of them. Why do I say that? Well, 4 left the case against Trump's longest time advisor. That's not a real word. The person who's been an advisor for the longest to Donald Trump is Roger Stone, okay? His sentencing recommendation was put in by who they call the line prosecutors, those who were doing the case directly, all right? Then Justice Department officials overrule that sentence recommendation as if they hadn't signed on to it originally. Why? Well, the only thing we know is something that is no coincidence. The president said the sentence wasn't fair. All of a sudden, they put in a thin brief saying there should be less time. 2 of our legal analysts are both former federal prosecutors, Elliot Williams, Shanlon Wu. Gentlemen, thank you. And again, just for on the consensus point, have you ever heard of anything like this before?
No.
Have you ever heard of anything like this?
This is absolute madness.
All right.
No.
The normal protocol obviously involves no gaps, that especially in a high-profile case,
right,
the bosses would know about the sentence. The idea of debate about the sentence, not unusual. But feeling once it's offered up to the judge,
right,
now we have to change this. Has that ever happened?
No, that's never happened.
No.
All right. So we then have to look at why here. All right, I'll take the opposite. Well, because the president's right, it was grossly beyond what should be seen here. What do you see in this sentencing the memo, in terms of the basis for that argument that, wow, did they go way overboard?
Okay, first of all, I think that's the first time we've heard anything from this administration that a sentence was too broad or too crazy. But set that aside. You know, the way the federal sentencing guidelines work is that once someone has been convicted of an offense, they get essentially a score, right? And things get added to that score based on the facts of the case. So for instance, if you threaten someone with violence, if it's an ongoing scheme, if you use a weapon, and those are the kinds of things that bump the score up. Here, the line prosecutors, the career prosecutors, work that all out, and it comes out to 7 to 9 years. Now, you or I sitting here might think that sounds like a draconian sentence or whatever, but that doesn't matter, because that's what the federal sentencing guidelines say, and that's what courts across the country rely on.
It's harsh, but within the guidelines.
Yes.
And Roger Stone did commit the major foul in terms of the world that you guys used to be in, which is he tried you. You know, he said, I'm trying the case, and then you're looking at the upper sentence. 7 to 9 is the upper part of the sentence.
Right.
It's not like the sentencing guideline is 3 to 5, and they just gave him 7 to 9. So what does it lead you to as a logical conclusion about what happened here to have this type of change in disposition?
It can only be a political influence, because the second memo that they did, the watered-down version, they're really arguing, this is a little bit technical, but something called a variance, which is they're saying we need to vary from the guidelines range to go lower because of these other factors. That's fine. They can do that. But before you do that, you got to talk through those points with your supervisors before you can ask for the variance. So it's backwards. What happened first? Then they would come out and do it. But they went through that. We've heard reporting that there was talk as to what the recommendation should be. So that was the recommendation, 7 to 9. Then what happens? Trump weighs in, sudden reversal.
All right, so now the next pushback. So what? He's the president of the United States. He's able to say that he doesn't like a sentence. And if the DOJ decides that they want to modify based on what the chief executive says, we don't know that he had direct influence.
So is that how the law works now? So we have an entire body of laws that have stood for decades, that the government, that Congress has passed, that courts across the country have followed, and all of a sudden Donald Trump comes in and says, well, I don't like how something works, and therefore career prosecutors who've devoted decades to serving without fear or favor all of a sudden have their work thrown away because Donald Trump put it in a tweet. That is nonsense.
Well, the 4 prosecutors stepping away is a bad fact for me because it shows a level of outrage here. But do you need to show direct action by the president with the big shots at the DOJ in order for this to be anything more than a political curiosity?
No, because he's publicly stating it, really. And to Elliot's point, it's interesting because the system doesn't rely on a rule that says the president as head of the executive cannot do this.
Right.
But it's a system of integrity and trust that's built up over decades and decades that the higher-ups of justice try to insulate not only the line prosecutors from political input, but the institution, they tried to protect it from that. And that's what's being lost.
And on top of that, the folks who signed the memo that superseded this, they should be ashamed of themselves because what they did was throw their staff under the bus. These were folks that had spent a lot of time working on, the fact they spent a lot of time on it doesn't matter, but it's right as a matter of law. And then based on a political matter, the bosses came in and said, sorry, we're going to throw your work away. That's just bad management, and it's ugly, and it's a dark place that we're taking federal prosecution in this country if that's how decisions are now
the
being
fact
made.
that the trial team resigned, they fought hard for that victory. For them to walk away says, I don't feel like this is my case anymore.
Also, it's the president playing the system two different ways. One is, if you looked at his tweet, which, Jealous, no reason to show it to him. People can find it themselves. Why? Because it's a malignant tweet. It's filled with a lot of things that aren't true, half true, and it's trying to get you to believe that the institution of justice is corrupt and against it, and only this president can save you. So he's trying to have it two ways. He's trying to have you not believe in the institution of justice, the administration of justice, but also he's not offering a pardon to his friend. If you care so much about the sentence, pardon him. That's within your exclusive power, and you don't have to mess with the administration of justice. It's on you. Why won't you take some risk for your friend? Why just blame the institution instead of blaming yourself? Because the answer is within your own power. All right, so that's what's going on with this story. We'll take you through more of it. It certainly isn't over. Senator Bernie Sanders pulls off a narrow win in New Hampshire. That is a good thing, but yes, people expected him to win by more. Pete Buttigieg, only less than 2% behind, overperforming again. What does a primary this close mean going forward? Next.